So you might have seen one of my previous videos where I take this here old Bridgeport milling machine, which used to be in a much rougher condition than it's in now, and basically clean all the old dirt, grease and grime off of there to restore it into the condition that it's in now. And at the end of that video, I wanted to see if the machine works. So I put this dirty old Machinist Vice on there that I got with the machine, and the machine worked. But the Vice has been there ever since. And as many of you have already pointed out, the rusty old greasy look of this Vice doesn't really fit in with my newly restored and clean Bridgeport. So in today's video, we're gonna take this dirty old rusty Vice and restore it to its former glory. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's get started. Right, so we've got the Vice, the handle for the Vice, and these two clamps that I've so far used to hold the Vice to the table. They're all in a pretty rough condition. We're gonna start by taking it apart as much as possible, get all the old rust, all the old grease and grime off of there, strip the paint, and then we'll take it from there. Yippee! That sure was a lot of filing and sanding and paint stripping and trying to get the old grease and grime off of there, but also trying to get the old paint off of there. I think I'm now at the spot where the two main parts here are not only clean enough, but I've also refinished all the metal surfaces that are not going to be painted. That job mainly consisted of getting rid of the rust on the machine surfaces here, but I also ended up cleaning up these machine surfaces on the sides and on the sides of this piece here. All of these surfaces were just really roughly machined and just didn't look any good and had old paint on them as well. So I sanded them down, tried to get them as flat as possible, but these are not critical to any of the functions of the vise, so it's not super important that they're as flat as possible. I also stoned all the surfaces that need to be flat to make sure that there's no burrs on the edges, and I give all the edges a nice fresh chamfer. Everything fits together. Also, the castings on these things were pretty rough, so I already started to clean up some of the surfaces here with the flap disc on the angle grinder and some filing here and there. The next step now is that I'm going to tape up all the surfaces that are going to be bare metal at the end so that I don't get any paint on those. Then I'm going to hit the whole thing with a coat of rust preventing primer that will also make the entire thing uniformly colored. And that way I can much easier see the imperfections in the castings, which I then can fill with some automotive filler. And that's probably going to take a few rounds of applying filler, sanding it down, applying filler, sanding it down until it's completely smooth. So no time to waste. Let's get started with that. Parts with a layer of this filler spray to fill out all small and minor unevenness. To filling in the last small dents and divots in the parts. Once those are taken care of, we'll be ready for some paint. I might have made a huge mess of my work table, but more importantly, we're almost done with all the parts for this vise. All the big parts that we just painted are ready and good to go. I've also cleaned up most of the other parts for the vise, and I even spent quite a bit of time refinishing these jaws, and I think they turned out great. As with many of the other parts, these were pretty rusty when I started, so I dipped all the parts in 35% vinegar to get the rust off, and then after that it was just a whole lot of hand sanding to get them into the condition they're in now. We'll talk more about these in a second once everything is assembled. And talking about assembling, that leads me to the last part of this project. And to be honest, I didn't plan on doing this. You might remember all the screws we took out of the vise when we disassembled it. I was just gonna give those screws a quick little cleaning in what I now realize was very strong soap. And I might have forgotten them in that soap overnight. So right now, this is what they look like. So I guess that leaves me no choice but to refinish these as well. Now to the final step of making these black like they were to begin with. I've got this cold blue solution here. It's called cold blue because it technically turns blue, but really dark blue, so it looks like black. In the tray here, I've got some of this stuff diluted. I'll just dip it in, agitate this for a little while, and then hopefully it'll turn out black. And that's it. All the parts are done. I've cleaned up everything down to the smallest piece. The only thing I ended up changing was instead of refurbishing all the screws, I ended up refurbishing the two most visible screws that will go into the back here. But for all the other ones, the ones that hold these in place and one of the jaws, I ended up taking Allen head bolts and shortening them so that they fit inside of here nicely. That has two benefits. I didn't need to try and refurbish some of these screws that were in a kind of a rough condition, as well as I can now use this short Allen head wrench, which will make it much easier to assemble compared to that janky flathead Allen thing that I used to take it apart. Okay, nothing left to do but start assembling it. And there we have it. The vise is assembled and this project is finished. Everything went together without a problem, and I'm really happy that I chose to use Allen head bolts instead of the flathead ones because it made it so much easier to assemble. And I have to say, I am super satisfied with the way this has turned out. Sure, there's still some marks left over from previous mishaps, but I think it gives it a little bit more character. And I'm sure it won't be long before I mess up something and make some new marks in it. Everything spins without a problem, and I couldn't be happier. And it is still just as heavy as when I started. And yes, I also painted the handle for it. Okay, so I'm gonna start mounting my newly restored vise onto my milling machine. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It actually makes a difference if you do. And if you're not yet, make sure to subscribe and ring that bell. That way you will get notified every time I upload something new. As for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.